They laughed at the optics. That's what the intel said. The Greltak Dominion, masters of ranged warfare, considered human weaponry obsolete. Neural-linked rifles, thought-guided plasma rounds, armor that bent light itself. These were standard. In their eyes, a glass scope was a relic like bringing a compass to a starship fight. But HFY wasn't a starship. It was a jungle moon, thick with steam, vines, and blood. And the Greltak had never faced Elias Reeve. The drop was silent. No orbital support. No AI overwatch. Just two humans, one mission, and a valley full of enemies. The capsule hissed as it landed, burrowing beneath the mossy underlayer of soil to avoid detection. Sergeant Reeve emerged first, rifle already in hand, his movements as quiet as the jungle's breath. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His spotter, Private Mina Kwan, followed close behind, adjusting her matte black DMR and scanning the tree line with a portable signal scanner. HFY pulsed with tension. The humidity wrapped around them like a second skin. Birds croaked in uneven patterns, too uneven. Something nearby was listening. Too quiet on the west side, Kwan murmured. Reeve gave a faint nod. His attention locked down the length of his scope. The old thing had no digital overlay, no thermal lensing, just precision glass and a calibrated zero. You prefer it that way. Instinct over enhancement. Their target was clear. Disable a Dominion uplink node buried in the jungle highlands. It wasn't just a communications post. It was a hub for command coordination, sniper overwatch, and enemy troop movement data. Taking it out would disrupt half the Greltak's operations in the sector. But this wasn't a seek and destroy mission. This was something subtler. A message. The Greltak had deployed sniper teams across the region to secure the uplink and ensure no approach from ground forces. 8 units, 32 individuals. They wore cloaks that mimicked the environment and rifles that fired with no muzzle flash. But Reeve had seen this before, in Borneo, back on Earth. The tools changed. The terrain didn't. And people, alien or not, still made mistakes when they were afraid. Kwan crouched near a fungus-covered tree, her slate blinking faint green. Local comms chatter spiked. There's a patrol 300 meters out. Moving slow. Snipers? Reeve asked, voice low even. Looks like it. Overwatch pattern. Sweeping for infiltration. Let's give them something to find. They moved like mist, barely present, never seen. Reeve took the high ground along a ridge line layered with hanging vines and black moss. He found a perfect shooting lane through the brush. Narrow, full cover, elevation, wind at his back. Kwan positioned herself behind a fallen tree with a broad visual cone, just enough to spot targets and relay adjustments. The Greltak emerged 10 minutes later. 4 of them, one clearly a squad leader with an enhanced optic node grafted into its skull. They moved with an eerie grace, not touching the ground so much as gliding over it. Weapons scanning in tight, efficient arcs. Reeve didn't fire. He waited. They passed directly beneath his position, pausing to consult their scanners. One of them tilted its head. The optic node hummed as it recalibrated. No heat signatures, no trace chemicals, no movement. Nothing but forest. Reeve exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The shot hit the leader's optic directly, turning its skull into shattered crystal and bone. The body dropped without a sound. The others froze, confused by the sudden fall. No shot register on their comms. No origin. Just silence. Reeve fired again. The second target spun violently and collapsed, weapon discharging into the ground. The third ducked behind a tree, eyes wide, scanning wildly with its helmet. The fourth retreated, then made the fatal error of looking back. Kwan took it with a clean round to the spine. The last one remained, panic-pinned. Its armor's cloaking shimmered with instability. Reeve adjusted his angle, letting the jungle settle. The creature peeked around its cover just once. That was all he needed. The round snapped its head back. For bodies. For clean kills. One team erased. Kwan didn't speak for a moment. Then, they didn't even hear us. They weren't supposed to. Reeve slid back from the ridge, packed his rifle, and signaled to move. Kwan followed, already pulling data from the squad's comms units. She'd scrubbed them for field encryption keys and location pings. The Greltak used short-range quantum bursts, fast, secure, but not immune to proximity intercepts. "They're still laughing at us, probably," she said, wiping her slate clean. "Let them." As they moved deeper into the valley, the air thickened with static. It wasn't natural. Reeve paused, holding a fist up. Quan dropped into a crouch. Across the next rise, faint shimmer lines moved like heat waves, Greltak sniper sentries. 3 of them, all camouflaged. One had just taken position, lowering itself into the roots of a wide, red-barked tree. Reeve lay flat, pulled the rifle around, and did something rare. He closed his eyes. His fingers adjusted the windage by feel. His breathing matched the pulse in his neck. He remembered the air pressure, the light angle, the tension in the air. Then he opened his eyes and fired. The shot drilled through the tree's bark and struck the hidden sniper behind it. Bark, blood, and bone sprayed outward. The other 2 turned, too late. Quan's shots echoed softly from behind cover, dropping one, then the next. 2 teams down, she said in her comm bead. No alert pings. They won't know what hit them. They relocated again, faster this time, weaving through a burned-out sector still smoldering from a recent skirmish. Charred vines curled around shattered Dominion crates. Scorched footprints suggested a firefight, none of it recent. Reeve paused near a fallen helmet. It belonged to a human recon scout, blackened and cracked. He picked it up, turned it over, then set it down. Quan watched him. This guy didn't get a story. Reeve didn't reply. They climbed a low ridge and found shelter beneath a rock ledge obscured by hanging roots. Quan pulled out rations, chewing in silence. Reeve cleaned his rifle, unhurried. "You ever think this is how we beat them?" Quan said. "Not with ships. Not with plasma. Just being ghosts." Reeve wiped the scope with the edge of his sleeve. "They forgot how to fight without machines. And we haven't." He looked at her then, really looked. "No," he said. "We haven't." As night blanketed Raveth 4 in blue and black, the 2 snipers settled into the earth. The jungle murmured around them, restless, alive. Somewhere far above, Dominion ships waited for reports that wouldn't come. The uplink node pulsed in the distance, unaware it was next. And in the dirt, in the dark, the last thing the Greltak would ever expect waited with breath slow, eyes open, and optics that never lied. Smoke coiled from the scorched trench lines like incense from a sacrificial altar. The air stank of burnt chitin and ozone. All around the battlefield, silence bloomed, an unnatural pause that followed the retreat of the Varkari horde. For the first time in weeks, no gunfire echoed, no screams pierced the dusk. The silence was not peace. It was aftermath. Vrylox stood amidst the wreckage, the weight of survival pressing heavily on his shoulders. His armor was dented, slick with grime, his weapon low but not forgotten. He had watched many things die, soldiers, civilians, worlds, but never fear itself. And now, after what he'd just witnessed, it was clear that something new stalked this war. Something more terrifying than extinction. The possibility of victory, bought at a cost few were willing to pay. The humans moved among the corpses like shadows given mass. They didn't speak unless necessary. They worked in teams of 2, scanning the fallen, harvesting tech from Varkari remains, patching their own wounded with brisk, brutal efficiency. One applied a steel-tipped injector to a shattered leg. The soldier in question merely grunted and stood. Captain Elias Ward was already coordinating the next offensive. Vrylox watched him from a distance, studying the man who had done in minutes what the Alliance had failed to accomplish in months. Ward's armor was pitted and stained, his beard matted with dry blood, but his movements remained precise, measured, as though every step was a continuation of doctrine. He did not walk. He advanced. Their eyes met across the field. Vrylox approached slowly, careful not to interrupt any human formation rituals he didn't understand. "Captain," he said, saluting. Ward turned his head. "Commander, I've never seen anything like what your team just did." Ward studied him for a long beat, then spoke. "You've seen war. What you haven't seen is purpose. The words lodged in Vrylok's mind like a blade. He searched Ward's face, looking for sarcasm, even arrogance. But the human wasn't gloating. He was stating fact. What exactly is Task Force 7? Vrylok asked. Spec Ops Detachment out of Earth's 6th military enclave, Ward replied. We're not diplomats. We're not scouts. We don't observe. We end conflicts. And Earth sent only you. They sent enough. Before Vrylok could respond, a mechanical rose nearby. One of the human soldiers, broad-shouldered, his helmet painted with tally marks, unfolded a portable relay dish from his armor and locked it toward the sky. Seconds later, encrypted signals pulsed through the static. A faint hum bloomed above, and in the distance, dark lines began descending through the atmosphere. More ships. Ward didn't look up. Our main contingent is arriving. 2 battalions. Heavy infantry, gun drones, air support. That's an army. Ward glanced at him. No, that's a warning. Vrylok couldn't tell if that warning was meant for the Valkyrie or for him. He followed Ward back to a makeshift command post erected within the ruins of a collapsed transport carrier. Inside, 3 human operators sat at glowing consoles, inputting command strings with silent intensity. A 4th stood near a table projecting a tactical map, layers of data folded over Keltoran's fractured terrain. Ward waved a hand over the display. Valkyrie Hive cluster here, he said, pointing to a red flare near the eastern ridge. 2 million hostiles, 3 queens. Their drone tunnels run under most of the city's eastern quadrant. That's where we hit next. You're planning to storm a hive? Vrylok asked. That's suicide. Only if you bring hesitation. You've studied them? We fought them before. Fringe systems. One of our colonies resisted Valkyrie expansion 15 years ago. Lost half the planet, but we learned. Vrylok narrowed his eyes. You never told the Alliance. Ward shrugged. We never needed to. Until now. The room fell into quiet efficiency once more. Vrylok felt like an interloper, a museum relic among apex predators. He watched as the dog, no longer snarling, but still alert, walked between human boots, sensors twitching on its harness. It sat obediently beside a soldier prepping detonation charges. What's the dog's name? Vrylok asked. Rex, Ward replied. He's smarter than half my squad. Don't pet him. He doesn't like that. Outside, the sky rumbled again. Dropships roared in over the mountains, sleek and armored, bristling with weapons. They deployed human infantry like precise thunderbolts. No fanfare, no chants, no ceremony. Just soldiers, armored and silent, descending to continue the work of ending the world's enemies. As the humans began preparations for their next assault, Vrylok returned to his bunker, mind reeling. Alora met him at the door, feathers dulled with fatigue. Well, she asked, what are they? He leaned against the wall, weary but wired. They're the death knell of the Valkyrie. She exhaled slowly. And after that, he didn't answer. That night, the eastern ridge lit up with fire. Explosions bloomed across the skyline like inverted stars. The Valkyrie counter-assault was annihilated mid-charge by remote-triggered mines and orbital pulse rounds. The humans didn't take ground by inches. They tore it away in slabs, carving through hive tunnels with seismic charges and flamethrowers. Vrylok watched the footage, horrified and awed. He'd seen soldiers die to save civilians. He'd seen troops dig in and hold. But he'd never seen death weaponized with such efficiency. The humans were machines of attrition, executing battlefield maneuvers that seemed more ritual than tactic. They didn't wait to be hit. They struck first, struck hard, and left nothing standing. A message arrived from High Command the following morning. Reinforcements were being redirected to other systems. With humans on the ground, Keltoran was no longer considered a priority theater. The bureaucrats had already assumed victory. Vrylok crumpled the data slate and tossed it aside. Later that day, he found Ward leaning against a broken Valkyrie tank husk, smoking a short, ugly-looking cigar. The human exhaled smoke that carried the scent of something chemical and bitter. You really think we can take the hive? Vrylok asked. Ward nodded. Not a question of if. Just when. And what then? Ward didn't reply immediately. He looked toward the mountains, where the sun fought to pierce the soot. Then we keep going, he said. War doesn't stop because we're tired. We're scared. It stops when the other side is dead. There was no cruelty in his voice. No sadism. Just certainty. Vrylox felt something shift inside him. A fracture in the way he understood warfare. The Alliance fought for defense, for survival, for the preservation of culture and peace. But humans didn't fight for survival. They fought to ensure there would be no second attack. Later that evening, Ward's team mobilized. They left no speeches, no promises, just the soft clink of armor plates, the whine of powered boots, and the quiet growl of Rex as the squad moved toward the hive. As they disappeared into the horizon of flame, Vrylox realized he would never see War the same way again, and neither would the galaxy. The walls of the Varkari hive screamed as it died. Deep beneath the surface of Keltoran, fire and steel tore through the tunnels with surgical brutality. The walls, once living chitin pulsing with alien life, now sagged under the weight of collapse. Detonation charges left great blackened wounds in the tunnels. Flame units scoured nurseries where larvae once crawled in deafening swarms. The air was thick with smoke, blood, and the sharp chemical stench of scorched alien flesh. Vrylox watched the battle unfold from the command relay, his claws clenched behind his back. Live drone feeds transmitted the human assault from helmet cams. Harsh, disorienting images rendered in flickering infrared and tactical overlays. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. Captain Ward's team moved like spirits of vengeance. 8 soldiers reduced, now to 6. 2 had fallen in the initial breach, their last moments broadcast to the whole task force without panic or screams. 1 detonated his body as a last measure, taking an entire brood cluster with him. The other had bled out in silence, refusing extraction. There was no mourning. The team simply adjusted formation and pressed forward. Ward himself led the spear point. His armor was blackened, claw marks etched across the chest plate. One arm trailing blood where shrapnel had found seam. Still he moved, deliberate and cold. Rex, the war dog, padded silently beside him, muzzle stained, sensors glowing red. Vrylox leaned closer to the screen as Ward planted a seismic breach device into a structural node. A faint countdown began, 10 seconds to detonation. The humans retreated 20 meters, took cover, and waited. When the blast came, it wasn't fire, it was collapse. The central hatchery caved inward, folding like lungs punctured from within. Screeches echoed over comms, abruptly cut off. The humans advanced again. Alora stepped into the command center behind him, her wings drooping in fatigue. Reports from the East say resistance has dropped by 60%, she said. You were right. That was the Queen's nest. I was afraid I was, Vrylox said softly. She looked at the screen. They're not soldiers. They're extinction engines. No, he replied. They're human. Outside the bunker, the Alliance forces were adapting. Morale had surged after the humans arrived, but it wasn't celebration. It was awe, tinged with dread. Alien soldiers began copying tactics they'd once considered barbaric. They stopped offering quarter. They began laying traps, using Varkari corpses as bait. Some adopted the human creed. Strike first, finish always. Vrylox watched it all with unease. What the Varkari hadn't broken, victory might. Later, he met with Ward near the remnants of the hive. The human stood over a steaming crater, visor retracted, his eyes sunken but clear. His jaw was set in the same stone-like way it always was, but Vrylox could see it. Fatigue, not physical but moral. The weight of what had been done. You've won this planet, Vrylox said. But what have we lost? Ward didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached down and scooped up a handful of black Varkari ash. It sifted through his fingers, drifting on the poisoned wind. You think this is new to us, Ward said. It's not. Vrylox narrowed his eyes. You've done this before. Earth has always fought alone. We're surrounded by stars that think war is ceremony. We've had no such illusions. When we fight, we end things. You've ended a world. We saved yours. Vrylox hesitated. At what cost? Ward looked him dead in the eyes. At the exact cost required. That night, reports came in from orbit. The Valkyrie fleet, already weakened, had begun to scatter. Human cruisers pursued them beyond the planetary boundary, showing no mercy. There would be no armistice. No prisoners. The Valkyrie had opened this war without negotiation, and humans would close it without forgiveness. Still, Vrylox couldn't sleep. The more he replayed the footage, the more a question gnawed at him. Who would survive this war? The soldiers or their souls? By morning, a disturbing rumor began to circulate. Human Command had authorized a secondary campaign, targeting the unhatched eggs across 3 Valkyrie-infested moons. No attempt at dialogue. No warning. Just coordinated strikes to eliminate generations of a species. Alora brought the report to Vrylox personally. "This is genocide," she whispered. "They call it extermination," he replied. "To them, that's mercy, a clean end. We're no better than the Valkyrie if we follow this. They didn't ask us to follow. They didn't even ask for our permission." Ward summoned Vrylox to the forward operations post that afternoon. The interior was dark, lit only by red light strips. Human tech littered the room. Folded drones, bulletproof data slabs, ration packs that smelled like fire and caffeine. "You read the report," Ward said without looking up. "I did. Then you understand the necessity." Vrylox kept his voice measured. "Do you?" Ward looked at him, then, something flickering behind the steel of his gaze. "I've lost friends to these things. Colonies. Families. I understand what happens when you hesitate." Vrylox stepped closer. "What happens after the last Valkyrie dies, Captain? What happens when there are no more monsters to kill?" Ward was silent. Rex barked once, sharp alert. A soldier entered the room with a blood-streaked tablet. "Captain, you need to see this." Ward took the device, frowned. "Brood mother found alive. In Sector 11. She's breeding still. No guards. No defenses. Trap?" Vrylox asked. Ward shook his head. "Bait." They mobilized within the hour. Vrylox went with them this time. Not to fight, but to see. To understand. The hive was unlike the others. Cold, quiet, almost reverent in its design. Organic structures curled like cathedrals, lightless and hollow. In its center stood the brood mother, towering, dying, her limbs shriveled but still pulsing. Around her, eggs lined the walls in perfect rows. She did not attack. She did not scream. She looked at them with alien eyes filled not with malice, but exhaustion. "She knows it's over," Ward said. "She's giving us a choice." Vrylox stepped forward. "You don't have to do this." "She does," Ward said. "She's counting on us becoming what she is." He raised his rifle. Rex growled low. Vrylox closed his eyes. The shot echoed. They left the hive in silence. Outside, the wind had shifted. The sky was clearer, the smoke thinner. Somewhere in the distance, the sun bled through, weak but rising. Back at the base, Alliance soldiers were already preparing to move on. Keltoran was secure. The next war front awaited. Vrylox stood alone at the edge of the battlefield, the scorched ground stretching endlessly before him. The war against the Valkyrie was ending. But the war inside every soldier who'd survived, that was only beginning. The stars over Keltoran no longer flickered with enemy fire. In the vast black above, where once Valkyrie cruisers had loomed like steel parasites, only the shadows of human dreadnoughts remained, silent and immense, as if carved from the void itself. The war was ending, or so the galaxy had been told. But the war that remained, the one no broadcast would admit, had just begun. Commander Vrylox stood atop the scorched ridge that overlooked the plains where the final Valkyrie resistance had been crushed. His armor no longer bore the polished colors of the Alliance. Now it was matte gray, dulled by soot and blood, indistinguishable from the terrain around him. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They'd redefined what survival meant. And in doing so, they'd made something of him he barely recognized. Reports from across the sector flooded the command terminals. The Valkyrie were gone, systematically hunted, their breeding worlds sterilized, their fleets dismantled or burned. Entire colonies now drifted in silence, their structures intact but emptied of life. No surrenders, No truces. Just absence. Earth had sent more ships. Larger ones. Carriers, cruisers, black-hole transports filled with armor, drones, and more soldiers bred from the same brutal stock as Task Force 7. But none like them. The original unit had dispersed, absorbed into larger deployments, or recalled for reasons not disclosed. Only Ward remained, a solitary figure among the swelling tide of human presence. He stood now by the ruined gateway of the Alliance's former capital compound, its once proud banners burned away, its walls covered in reinforced scaffolding marked with Earth insignia. Where the Alliance had coordinated its last defenses, humans now established planetary command. Vrylox approached him. Ward didn't move, didn't glance away from the horizon. "They're calling it peace," Vrylox said. Ward exhaled, the smoke from a short cigar curling in the chilled air. "No such thing. Just time between the next inevitable failure." Vrylox studied him. The scar above Ward's eye had deepened. His face was more gaunt, his voice even more distant. But there was something else, a tension that hadn't been there before. A man watching not for enemies, but for consequences. Some of the Alliance worlds are resisting Earth's oversight, Vrylox said. Protests, shutdowns, demands for human withdrawal. Earth won't withdraw. You're occupying us. No, Ward said quietly. We're protecting you. Vrylox laughed, bitter and dry. From what? Ward turned at last. Yourselves. The wind stirred around them, lifting dust into small spirals that danced through the broken courtyard. You don't trust us to rebuild, Vrylox said. I don't trust anyone who hasn't seen what the abyss makes of you. And what has it made of you, Captain? Ward didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward the human command post, motioning for Vrylox to follow. Inside, the walls gleamed with sterile efficiency, data streams flowing in constant pulses, tactical overlays glowing above every table, human officers speaking in clipped, coded exchanges. In the center stood a holographic projection of a star map. 3 sectors marked in red. Varkari remnants? Vrylox asked. Ward shook his head. Former Alliance systems. Unstable governments. Failing logistics. Threats of fragmentation. You're moving in on your allies. We're preventing collapse. Vrylox stepped closer to the display. You're seizing control. Ward's eyes narrowed. The Varkari weren't the only threat. They were just the most obvious. Now, the cleanup begins. Vrylox pointed to a marked planet, Euros Prime. They were untouched by the war. They've maintained neutrality. They denied Earth orbital rights, refused to dismantle high-opmo rail cannons. That's not neutrality. That's preparation. So you'll force them to comply. We'll ensure they don't become the next Varkari. Vrylox stepped back, cold settling into his spine. You've traded one tyranny for another. No, Ward said. We ended one. Now we prevent the next. That's what winning looks like. Outside, dropships rumbled overhead, heading toward the horizon where new deployments waited. Vrylox stood still, staring at the projection as if it might blink and reveal some flaw, some logic that excused what was happening. He found none. Later that evening, he returned to the observation deck atop the former Alliance tower. Alone, the planet was quiet. No gunfire, no alarms, only the faint hum of reconstruction drones rebuilding structures faster than any natural process could allow. But it wasn't restoration. It was erasure. Alora had already departed for her homeworld. She couldn't watch what came after victory. Others had followed. Leaders resigning, soldiers defecting, diplomats silenced by irrelevance. The Alliance hadn't been defeated, but it had been rendered obsolete. Ward arrived just before midnight, a data slate in hand. He didn't speak as he handed it over. Vrylox scanned the file. Orders. Earth was requesting key resource facilities across liberated sectors be turned over for defensive restructuring. Orbital control, military governance, trade reorganization, all under Earth oversight. This isn't rebuilding, Vrylox said. It's annexation. Ward remained silent. Vrylox looked out over the ruined skyline. I used to believe we were fighting to preserve something sacred. Culture, identity, autonomy. We were, Ward said. You still are. But now you're doing it under our shield. And if we refuse, you won't. For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then Vrylox asked, "Was this your plan all along?" Ward's voice was low. "No, but it was inevitable. We showed up to stop a war. We stayed to ensure it never happens again." Vrylox turned to him, eyes cold. "Then we've not been saved, Captain. We've been conquered." Ward met his gaze without blinking. "Better by us than someone else." The word struck harder than any explosion. The next morning, the new flags were raised. Earth's sigil flapped over command towers, spaceports, and orbital arrays. A new era, the humans called it. A time of order, of unity, of peace. Vrylox watched them rise without ceremony. He understood, finally, what victory truly meant. Not just the defeat of one's enemies, but the reshaping of everything that came after. The fire had ended. The ash was settling, and from it rose a force that knew no rival. Not because of numbers or weapons, but because it believed utterly in its right to define what came next. Somewhere beyond the stars, the last of the Valkyrie may have fled. Somewhere, another threat might already be forming. But for now, Earth ruled. And in that rule, Vrylox saw a new kind of war. The kind fought in silence. The kind fought with compromise and compliance. The kind where freedom became a memory whispered in hallways long forgotten. He stepped away from the observation post, the wind biting through his uniform. Behind him, the Earth flag flapped steadily, endlessly, over a world that had been saved and surrendered